According to Business Insider, Americans are more likely to die from gun violence than many of the other leading causes of death combined, with some 11,000 people in the U.S. killed in firearm assaults each year. That resonates true, seeing as there have been over 154 mass shootings in the U.S. so far in 2018, the most since 1970. Today we will be looking at the New York Times editorial, "Schools Can Keep Kids Safe Without Giving Their Teachers Guns." And I will explain why the evidence does not support this argument. I will focus specifically on why the New York Times is wrong for believing that only preventative measures can keep our youth safe, the lack of supporting evidence in the editorial, and why we should arm our teachers. One claim of the article says that schools need to provide more mental health services to its students in order to keep them safe. This is an incorrect statement because according to Brian Volsky, the director of National Violence Prevention and Study Center, reported that only 1/3 of attackers, 34%, ever received a mental health evaluation, and less than 1/5, 17%, were diagnosed with a mental disorder. Due to the lack of these students' use from school mental health services, if we were to spend those monies arming, teaching, and preparing staff for high-risk situations like school shootings, there would be far less of a risk than if we were to just try to talk to these kids. In the New York Times editorial, it states that in their rush to arm up, they are overlooking solutions that are both more promising and less contentious, and that violent prevention experts have spent years clamoring for. This statement lacks any explanation of what these solutions are, and without proper supporting evidences of these promising situations, we have no reason to believe this argument. This editorial then goes on into how schools need to prioritize school climate. However, like before, there is no supporting evidence or materials in order to back their claim. Although schools can do their best to prioritize school climate, the New York Times is wrong in saying that a healthy school climate is crucial to reducing the threat of violence. In fact, the American Educational Research Association did a study that tested the correlation between school climate and violence, and they did not find any evidence that improving school climate leads to the reduction of violence over time. In addition, this editorial also fails to give any suggestions on how we can prioritize school climate. A third claim states that we must implement proven threat assessment programs. However, implementing threat assessment programs in schools will only target students who act out to the teachers and that they see as potential threats. However, most students who carry out mass shootings are never thought to be dangerous. According to the same report done by Waltz and Bluer, the majority of predators showed no significant change in academic performance, friendship patterns, interest in school, or school disciplinary programs prior to the violent attacks. The majority of attackers were academically successful students, earning A's and B's in their coursework. The American Public Health Association states that the proposal to arm teachers as a means of curbing mass shootings is akin to an effort at secondary or tertiary prevention, as it only seeks to reduce the damage of a shooting once it has already started. This means that while arming teachers may not be the key to reducing school shootings, it is simply a backup plan in case other measures do not work. Through my discussion of why the New York Times is wrong for believing that only prevention measures can keep our youth safe, the lack of supporting evidence in the editorial, and why we should arm teachers, we were able to see that the New York Times is wrong in believing that simply coming up with more preventative measures with little to no supporting evidence will work. The problem then is not the fact that the article says these things, but their lack of backing and research to support their claims. By simply adding a few prime examples and specific studies as evidence, this editorial could have been much more effective.